Hello, CRE 101 students. This is Mary Ellen Ornberger, and this is a quick screencast / lecture on values and valuing, which will help you process a lot of the information that you'll encounter in this module. However, you will not encounter this information directly in chapters 2 or chapters 3. So it's kind of important to listen, and I'll try to keep it short and sweet. So values are these things that we have, right? They're general guides to our behavior. They give us direction in our lives. Lots of times our values reflect our behaviors. So for example, I like to garden. I spend daily time in my garden, and although gardening is not a value, I do have a pretty strong value for respecting the earth, respecting the planet, respecting fruits and vegetables, I guess, would be a way to think about it. So this behavior that I do on a daily basis reflects a value that I have about the way in which I engage with the earth and our environment that is evidenced in my behavior by spending time gardening. So that's a pretty good example to explain how lots of times we can look at people's behaviors and we can think about the values that are underlying that behavior. And where it becomes most important is when we're looking into the concept of arguments and beliefs. Lots of times the positions people take in arguments, lots of times the beliefs that we choose to take on a side of an issue are rooted in our values. So values take a little bit of a balancing act. They're typically in the conditions of our behavior, and sometimes our values can conflict with what is being asked of our time. And when that occurs, lots of times it's when values come into play to help us decide whether or not we're going to enact on a value. So I can give you the example of the value that I regard very highly in education, that I believe that all decisions should begin and end with the student at the center. I believe in student-centered decision-making. And sometimes I'm asked to engage in a committee or a choice or a conflict where I feel like another party is not necessarily valuing the student as much as I do. And that puts me in that conflict of having to weigh my own values against the decision at hand and whether or not what I'm doing is really reflecting what I believe. So there's an example of the push and pull of the forces. So we're constantly shaped also by the experiences with which we choose to engage. So values aren't these things that are set by some experiences we have when we're children and they follow us for the rest of our lives. Rather, we're constantly shaping and molding and rearranging our values as we engage with experiences. And there's a process I want you to think about here, and it has 3 steps. And a way to think about the process of valuing is choosing, prizing, and acting. So choosing is when we decide, okay, we're going to take a stand on something, and it's that process of taking this moment to think, well, what do I believe? We do this freely, even though we are influenced by experiences. We typically are, and we are frequently involved in our own choosing. And then another step that's involved in valuing is prizing. Once we make a choice, we're supportive of the choice. And another way of thinking about this is being content with the choice. And one of the ways in which we can affirm that choice is to share it publicly. So I can give you another example of choosing an alternative education path for my children. They are involved in Montessori education, and I made that choice and was content with that choice and was willing to share with other moms, other friends, etc., that myself and my husband had made this choice for our children. So prizing is the second step. And then finally, we act upon these decisions. We don't just do something with the choice. We don't just talk about it, but it involves some sort of acting, some sort of change. And typically, this becomes a pattern in our lives that we choose, we prize, and then we act upon it. So it's this mental exercise that we involve ourselves with that drive what we do over and over. So the choice of living a healthy lifestyle, sharing that healthy lifestyle with friends or on social media or something like that, and then allowing that value of living a healthy lifestyle to drive what you do over and over. Choosing to eat correctly, choosing to go to bed at a reasonable hour or pick up some sort of physical exercise. This larger value of a healthy lifestyle can govern lots of the different actions that one may or may not choose. And none of this is something we do sort of forward consciously. A lot of this is what we do subconsciously. And so we don't really have these conversations about choosing and prizing and acting, but it's that undercurrent of value-laden systems that really drive us as a people. And when we get into conversations and conflicts, we need to think about the values that are driving us. So this is the process, and the results of it are called values, and they collectively define valuing. So the other thing about valuing that you need to think about is the context in which we all come to value certain things. Any one of us have values that are shaped by our families, our histories, our peers, be them work peers or social peers such as friends, by media, whether you choose to engage with media or not, we're all affected by it. Perhaps you are involved in religious organizations such as church, and those values can influence your decision-making. Mentors can also be a place where we're molding and shaping our values. Our mentors can be in the form of older siblings, friends, educators, coaches, teammates, and then, of course, others. You know, my values can be shaped by a character from a novel that I really admire, or even a nonfiction individual with whom I've never personally engaged, but my own beliefs or my own value systems are somehow shaped and become molded by that individual. So our values change over time, and I want you to think about your own values, how they have changed over time. Think about what you valued when you were 8 versus when you were 15 versus where you are now. And if you can pinpoint any experiences or actions that caused your values to change, and how that affects what you believe and how you come to arguments and decisions today. So that's it for now, and we'll continue with some notes on chapters 2 and 3 from the textbook.